so much, Francis. It's really wonderful to be here. I miss ARC, so it's so good to see the board and Chris and Shane and Brenda. I miss you guys, and it made me feel a little bit less alone to be among other dead editors. because it was hard to leave. So I'm gonna do something a little different tonight than I usually do. I'm not gonna read poetry. And the reason I'm not going to read poetry is that I was reviews editor at ARC. And so I feel like I wanted to tell that story. I wanted to tell the story of a poet who doesn't write reviews, who becomes a reviews editor, and what exactly that meant to me as a reader and as a writer. And so when I first became reviews editor at ARC, I had actually never written a review. Up until that point. And the reason I got excited about reviews, or that I wanted to do reviews, was because of this, the inception at the sort of the moment I became involved with ARC of Canadian women in the literary arts, which was sort of born to look at gender disparity in critical culture in Canada. And when Canadian women in the literary arts came to be, I realized I read reviews all the time, I care about reviews, I want to be reviewed, and I don't write reviews, and I don't foster the reviewing process. So what does that mean? How do I take responsibility for that? And because I was at ARC as a member, a board member at large kind of at the time, and the position fortuitously became available, I thought, what better way to start to value critical culture than to put an editorial value on it. And so I was so honored that ARC allowed me to take up that position. And between 2012 and 2014, I edited over 140 reviews. And as most of you here probably know, ARC publishes the most poetry reviews in Canada and continues to do that. And as Francis mentioned, aside from our print content, we put up weekly web content. And JM Quintetto continues to do that after I've left. So the reason I left ARC, I was sad to leave, but the reason I left was that my husband and I had a baby almost a year ago. And I wanted to learn how to be a parent, and I wanted to take that time of my maternity leave just to spend time with our son. And so I thought I would put an end to some of the things I was doing in my life during my maternity leave. Of course, during the time since I've had my son, I've continued to write, and it's been really difficult for me to have the mental space to write poems. I find that poetry takes up a lot of room in my mind and in my sort of emotional landscape. But what I have been able to do is I've been able to continue to write prose, and part of the prose that I've been able to continue to write is reviews. And in fact, I still owe ARC a review, and I haven't forgotten about it. It's coming. So because this is a farewell reading, and even though I'm a poet, sort of by normal, in my normal writing life, I wanted to take this opportunity to read from something relevant to my time as an editor. So I wanted to say that I'm inspired by the many reviews of my own work since Broom Broom came out, and actually even before that of some of my chapbooks. And JM has reviewed me, and other people in the community who aren't here right now, Rob McLennan, Jenny Haysom of ARC, who's now prose editor, and Marilyn Irwin as well. And I'm also inspired by the many reviews that I read and saw through to publication. And many people in our community also write for ARC, and I was honored to be able to work with them. So I'm going to read a review of sorts. This could be risky because reviews aren't necessarily known as the most riveting of reading material. But anyone who loves reviews, as I do, knows that the insight, the refined critical turn of phrase, and the care and attention to reading that can be found in a good review transcend the evaluative model. And I'm particularly interested in the ways that reviews produce dialogue, and maybe even moving beyond themselves, conversation, valuable to writers and readers alike. So I'm going to read something that I wrote for Subterrane, and I'm going to pass out a poem. In this context, I thought it would be good not to read a review of an entire book, which people may or may not have read. So I'm going to read a critique or a critical review of a poem, and I'm going to read the poem first. So it's something I wrote for Subterrane, and I think the review I'm about to read still functions a little bit in that objective form where I'm trying to make a case for the poem. And as I move forward with reviewing, I'm less and less interested in that. And I think I'm looking more and more as I interact with text toward kind of an ecstatic model of reading rather than an evaluative model of reading. So when Subterrane asked me to do this review, critique/review of Lucas Crawford's work, what I asked myself was whether or not I could be excited about the work. And I know there are lots of discussions right now and sort of in the last couple of years about what purpose the review serves and whether we need critical and negative reviews. I actually don't really want to come down on either side of that argument. I think that's for each critic to make up their own mind. But when I asked myself what kind of critic I wanted to be, I absolutely wanted to discuss work that excites me. And so I definitely have landed on that side of the divide. Anyway, so to begin, I'm going to pass out a poem. There's 15 copies, so people have to share. So maybe I'll just, So while that's going around, I'm just going to foreground it a little bit. The poem is by Lucas Crawford, as I said. And for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, Lucas Crawford is a poet, performer, and professor whose first book of poems came out today. So I thought that was also a nice coincidence. Sideshow Concessions is the name of his first book, and it came out with Invisible Publishing. And its copy describes the book as the unofficial story of someone who is both a bearded lady and the fattest man in the world. So the poem that we're going to look at is called Airplane Lavatory Algebra, and its speaker is self-described as fat and queer, taking up issues of body and gender politics that Crawford concerns himself with more largely in his creative and academic career. So I'm going to read the poem. I'm not sure some of the subject matter is suitable for children. Okay, so sorry about that.
They probably won't understand.
Although it's very interesting to me to read a poem like this because obviously the speaker and I are quite disparate in our identities. So it could be a little jarring. If it helps, just look down at your paper and don't look at me. Or if you do look at me, like pretend I'm packing or something. I thought I should pack, but obviously it's not going to go with my outfit. So. Airplane Lavatory Algebra. If X equals my ass, and my ass is 100 feet behind first class, then let Y be the compression required to have X in the airplane lavatory. I am the reluctant engineer of the Mile Wide Club. If V equals the volume of the airplane lavatory and C equals the circumference of my thighs, then let B be the rotational axis around which I must pivot to P. Like Superman, this booth transforms me into the lead contortionist of the Cirque du So Gay. If my buzz-cut seatmate's hair equals A squared, it remains unfair, this space between our chairs, where the armrest is owned by the acute angled elbow he digs into me, while my flabby forearm hovers rather non-aerodynamically. My God, dude, would touching elbows be like fucking me? Am I the first ever fat flight attendant of flight AC693? If H equals the height of the lady attendant's bangs, then P equals her hunger pangs this year. If my queer chest, uni-boobed, may be called Q3, then I summon Houdini's powers to extend the length of all our constraints once, twice, thrice, and then to the power of 9, for the captain has just turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. F equals my fear that in the unlikely event of an emergency landing over water, the others will grab me to float. I'll kick them off with my aqua-thick quads, let them drown with their lead rod lean bods. Unlike the airlines, my policy is no fuss. Noah saved pairs, and all save 2XLs and plus. I'm flying to a city where fat will be equal or greater to or greater than just one. It has a street of strip clubs flanked by addition L's, XXX meets XXXL's. Hell, I'm a regular fat Elvis entering my Graceland, bananas in pockets, peanut butter in hand.